Know your role. Welcome back to another episode of JV Matters, where we talk about football, especially at the high school level. What makes a team? I'm your host, Coach Lowry. So let's dive into today's episode, knowing your role as a coach, as a JV football coach, and as a football player on the JV level. So one of the most important lessons I've learned in coaching football didn't come from a playbook, didn't come from championship games, and it didn't come from any clinic. It came from watching teams succeed and watching teams fail. The lesson is simple: know your role and know your job. Sounds simple enough. The problem is, most JV coaches and players don't really understand their role. At the end of the night, it's not always about the final score or what the scoreboard says or shows you. The head varsity coach doesn't always evaluate your win and loss record. That's not really what he's looking at. He's looking and evaluating your players. He's evaluating you. By that time, but this might not, or this might be one of the hardest things for a JV coach to understand or comprehend, and even his players, especially the new ones or the new coaches in today's world. Everyone wants to be the star. Every player wants to be the star. Everyone wants recognition. Everyone wants credit. Everyone wants to be that person making the big play. They want to be the one who hits the highlight reel. However, some players hit that highlight reel for the wrong reasons. But football has a way of teaching a different lesson. As a JV coach, I have come to realize that, and my biggest challenge is to get the message across to my assistant coaches as well. Not that we don't want to win, don't get me wrong there. I've mentioned that before in past episodes. And we try to win, and we put our best 11 players on the field every time. But we also are teaching. We're teaching the fundamentals. That's the biggest point. That's the biggest episode, or the biggest thing I'm trying to get across today, is getting those fundamentals across to your players. So when they go up to the next level, they're ready to play. They're ready to hit the ground running. Not that the head varsity coaches or the varsity coaches up there are having to reteach fundamentals from the ground up. They may have to go over some things because they were out for a year or for a partial time. A JV coach is always learning as well. You need to get with your varsity coaches on a regular basis, especially the positional coaches, and check in from time to time. Check for changes. I'm always checking with the head varsity coach. As I'm the head JV coach, I need to check to see what kind of changes are going on to make sure that I'm still keeping tabs or keeping up with whatever they're doing up top. So that if one of my players goes up there, they don't have a whole lot of changes they have to make. Championship teams aren't built on stars alone. So you need to remember that. They're built on players who understand their role as well as the coaches. Coaches need to understand their role too. The linebacker, the backup linebacker, he needs to know what his role is. He needs to be able to come off the bench and do his job, because one day he might be the starter. Maybe not this year, but next year he could end up being the starter. The scout team player, same thing. The special teams player, maybe that's all he's playing this year, but next year he might be the starter or the starting linebacker. The offensive lineman who never touches the football. The receiver who blocks so someone can get a score. Those players matter. In fact, many teams, or many times, they are the reason teams succeed. It's the ones who don't hit the highlight reels. At a JV level, I see this lesson year after year. Every player wants to start. That's natural. Who doesn't? But not every player will start. Not every player will play many downs or every down. Some players may not play, will play only a few downs. Some players may not get in the ball game at all in some games, especially if they're close. But once they get in, they have to play like it's their last game of the season, or like they'll never see the field again. So they have to play like they really mean it. Every player wants more playing time. That's natural too. But eventually, players have to answer an important question. Can you contribute to the team even when you're not the star? When you're coming off the bench? Or when you are a special teams player? Or when you're a scout teams player? Can you contribute? You have to ask yourself that question. Because football isn't about individual success. It's about team success. Coaches are the same way. A coach needs to realize on the JV level that he's coaching for varsity. He's not coaching for the JV. He's teaching the JV players the fundamentals so that they can get ready to play at the next level. And players and coaches who don't understand that could be a problem with the team, and they will need to be coached up. They need to be made to realize and understand their role. Every player has a role, regardless of what level you're playing at, from the freshman all the way on up to the varsity. You have a role. And a team success requires sacrifice. Sometimes your role is to lead. Sometimes your role is to support. Sometimes your role is to learn. Sometimes your role is to prepare for an opportunity that has yet to arrive. Maybe you're not ready to be on that field right now, but maybe in 2 games you are, or in 3 games, or halfway down the season. The problem begins when people stop focusing on their role and start focusing on somebody else's role. Your role isn't to worry about the person next to you. Your role is to worry about you. Players start worrying about another player's position, another player's playing time, another player's opportunities, then they forget to worry about themselves, and then they start losing playing time, and they start losing their opportunity. And the moment that happens, development usually slows down. And then that person who they're worrying about starts to pass them up more. Because energy is being spent on things they can't control. You need to worry about what you can control. And the same thing happens with coaches. I've seen assistant coaches get frustrated because they want a larger role, or they wanted a larger role. We try to hire coaches for a certain role, and they're looking at starting as a head varsity coach or a head positional coach on the varsity level. We don't always just take them on in for that. They have to earn their spot. Each coach, each player has a spot or has a role. I've seen coaches spend more time worrying about decisions they don't make than the responsibilities that they actually have. Coaches and players at the JV level all have a role. That role is to support the varsity program. Plain and simple. JV players, most of them need to realize, or they should all realize, that their job is to get ready for varsity. The only people that really look at the scoreboard are the parents. But that is because they really don't understand what the players and coaches' roles are. That it is a juggling match from day to day. The JV team is losing and gaining players constantly from day one. The best staffs I've been around had coaches who understand their role and performed it exceptionally well. My staff does that perfectly. If they have issues, we talk about them behind closed doors, away from the players. This is where it needs to be accomplished. It's always been united front in front of the players, and behind closed doors, we talk about issues. It's always that way with me. I wanted to win. So back in the day, I wanted to win. That was my focus. And if my coaches messed up or did something wrong, I let them know about it in front of the players. This was when I first started as a JV head coach back in 2002. Hindsight, had I realized what I know now, I would have handled those situations completely different. So coaches are always learning. Even in my situation, I have learned and I've come a long way in my ability and what I do now. You have to learn from your mistakes and admit your mistakes and admit that you're human, because then your players know that. Your players know when you're feeding them a line. They know when you don't know something. So make sure that you know it. And if you don't know it, tell them, look, I need to correct that. I need to fix that. But now my assistant coaches don't compete with each other. My assistant coaches never have. They complement each other, and that's what great teams do. Parents can fall into that same trap too. Sometimes parents become focused on another player's opportunities that they lose sight of helping their own child improve. That becomes a big problem. They start pointing fingers at the other player or the other child and asking coaches why their child isn't starting and while that child is starting. My child is better than him, and so on and so forth. They keep pointing that finger. But in many cases, that parent doesn't see or understand the entire story. They usually are more concerned or worried to see and looking with tunnel vision. The truth is that football eventually rewards players who focus on growth, not comparison, on growth. So parents, or players, I should say, need to start focusing on their growth, their ability. Once they start doing that, then they'll start getting more playing time, because then they'll start improving. The players who improve are usually the players who control what they can control: effort, attitude, preparation, coachability. Those things matter. One of the greatest examples of this is the player who stays ready. He may not be the starter today. He may not get the recognition today, but he keeps preparing. He keeps working. He keeps improving. Then one day, the opportunity arises. It comes. An injury, a position change, a roster move, and suddenly his moment has arrived. He now becomes a starter. I have seen this every year that I have coached. I see that one or two players who perform and work like crazy and then get the opportunity in a game, they now become the starter. I have one kid right now who's not the fastest, not the biggest, not the strongest, and probably won't get a lot of playing time this year. But he is of the one of the kids that gives it 100% every time he's there. He's a quiet kid. He doesn't argue or make waves. The kids on the team like him, but every time we have sevens tournament, he improves just that much more. In practice, he improves. He gets just a little bit better all the time. Who knows? Something may spark, something may change. But again, the players who understand their role are ready when that moment comes. The players who spent their time complaining usually are not. Those are the players that get overlooked by the coaches when the time comes, when their call comes. That's one of the reasons I love football. Football teaches lessons that carry into life. Every organization has a role, has roles. Every business has roles. Every family has roles. And football is like a family. Success often comes when people perform their role with pride instead of constantly wishing they had someone else's. Knowing your role isn't accepting limitations. It's about maximizing your contribution. It's about understanding that every role matters. And when everybody does their job, amazing things can happen. As coaches, one of the lessons we're trying to teach, not just how to play football, but how to become part of something bigger than yourself. Because football has never been about one person. It's always about the team. And the best teams I've ever been around had always had one thing in common. People knew their role and they embraced it. That's the lesson worth learning, both on and off the field. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, then hit the bell and subscribe below. Share with your friends and family who might benefit from this episode. You all have an outstanding day, and I'll catch you on the next episode of JV Matters.